Mountain God needs no donations, only worship. Please. Chapter 11 Fan Fiction by Azazyel. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for listening and patreon.com/Azazyel to read all of his stories. After squaring away the onery Oni, I moved back to my throne and held the divine sake gourd to just study the dark sapphire container. Fuck it. Bottoms up, I said cheerfully, and then plucked out the dark purple gem stopper and then tipped the large gourd-shaped container almost upside down. With this being a body I created, I obviously didn't have to worry about a gag reflex or something, so in the end a solid liter and a half of divine sake slid its way into my stomach, and I threw the gourd onto the ground as the divine liquor burned not only within my human body but... A loud rumble rang out through Gensokyo as Mount Moria shook and the top half almost seemed to elastically bend over, much to the confusion of people staring towards the sounds of the rumbling. Why does the mountain look like it's vomiting? A silver-haired maid deadpanned as she prepared to throw a knife into the sleeping form of the gate guard to the mansion she worked at, who was obviously awakened at the commotion. I wasn't asleep. Hong Meiling screamed fearfully, seeing Sakuya Izayoi with her raised hand armed with several throwing knives. Sakuya seemed to consider her words before shrugging. They say early prevention is merely an early cure. With that excuse, she threw her knives and Hong Meiling screamed and ran away with powerful strides, dodging the lazily thrown knives. He is doing something, isn't he? Ran. Yukari said as they dashed out of the gap portal she opened hastily after feeling Gensokyo shaking in her pocket dimension. Obviously, Lady Yukari. But will you give credence to my suggestions to just sit down to talk to him? Ran replied at a more sedate pace, not as panicked as Yukari, as she thought the mountain god in question likely was just lashing out in defense of itself, and his actions would make total sense if it somehow knew what happened to the other mountain god that was born in Japan. Bah! I will approach him when I am comfortable and in a better position. The Yukai sage said confidently, as she was never one to lower herself into being in a disadvantageous position. Ran could only sigh, and then she opened her own gap to the edge of the mountain god's barrier. I am going to see what happened up close and whether I can even speak with Moria. Not to mention she also wanted to see if some idiot decided to attack him again or something. Helping to repel said person could be a good inroad to at least establishing some form of communication to Moria, as he supposedly liked to be called. Ram thought as she popped out of the gap and stood in front of where Yukari threw a buzz at Moria, and he in retaliation had the children he rescued call her boobs supposedly lopsided or something. Who knows what was said? Yukari was almost in tears, so it's not like I could understand her ravings. Ran muttered as she looked around the area and then hesitated a moment before knocking politely on the barrier with her fists like it was a door. I think I flooded hell. No, seriously, the massive river going to and from hell turned into pure sake, and I felt a deluge of faith as what seemed to be all the Onis within hell converted to become my ardent worshippers almost instantly the moment they threw themselves into my holy blood. Major quotes on that, as it seems like I fucked up majorly, as several tributaries opened up rather than the massive river stretching through hell, and I could feel the worship the Onis were giving me deep in hell centering around the river of sake, making then it morphed into a literal blood vessel carrying faith and sake to and from the Oni section of old hell. Even more awkward was the way the small splits of the so-called main blood vessel or arteries turned into different flavors of sake, as the different Onis obviously had different tastes. Lord Moria, give me your babies. Yugi cried out as she dipped her enchanted bowl into my river to literally shovel liters of alcohol down her gullet. Let this be written in Moria's testament. Do not use reality manipulation on a large scale when drunk out of your fucking mind. I thought ruefully as Hiro ran inside my main cathedral with his axe in hand, probably expecting a powerful enemy bashing down my wards or something. Lord Moria, what has happened? He yelled out, and I kept a poker face as I held up a hand to forestall his questions. Thankfully I wasn't sloshed out of my mind, as the moment I was able to clear my mind I purged the alcohol and threw that damned gourd into a sealed room in my mountain, as it was obviously too dangerous. I have extended my reach far into the earth, with the Oni clan within Old Hell becoming my ardent worshippers, so my reaction to connecting into Old Hell was me just stretching my legs, so to speak. I said imperiously, and I felt he was calling bullshit as his mouth twitched, but he was still a devoted man following his god, so rudely questioning said god was not going to happen, so he just made up nonsense about leave his oven going as he ran here. I can see everything within my mountain. I know your oven isn't on. I thought with a smile threatening to spread on my face. But I didn't give him any trouble and let him go on his way with but a side eye letting him know I knew he was bullshitting. After he left, I went back to investigating old hell and gleefully watched the Oni making fools out of themselves in trying to claim certain parts of my Sake River and its tributaries with different flavors only for me to make the sake solid ice structures and beat the fighting Onis into bruised piles as no one gets to claim parts of me. Unless it's Yuko Seiji, she is a woman after my own heart with her appetite and just wanting to be left alone and maybe bring some entertainment to her home, though said entertainment tends to draw a rhyme with there to beat her senseless. But sadly, I am legitimately terrified of her ability to apply the concept of death to whatever she touches so she can stay the hell away, and I may one day could admire her from afar or something. Even as I was lost in mild fantasies of trying to think of a way I could be in a relationship with said woman or really any of the beautiful women causing problems around Gensokyo, I felt knocking upon my barrier and mentally blinked, seeing one of the best girls in Gensokyo or Toho in general. With a gentle pop, I teleported in front of Ran, who was only lightly startled at my abrupt appearance. "Ah, so that's what it's like on the other end, hee." She laughed gently, alluding to her and Yukari popping in on people via opening a gap which couldn't really be sensed unless you got some territory nonsense like I did or been around them for years like Raimu has. "Yes, well. May I help you, Ran Yakumo? Is this just a social visit or do I need to report any time I stretch my legs?" I asked with jest in tone so she didn't think I was being too much of a sarcastic ass. Ran looked around, seeing nothing except the upturned dirt from Yukari's abrupt leaving. She sighed and made a simple stone bench rise up from the ground, and although it didn't look comfortable, it was probably the best she could do without opening a gap to steal some furniture from somewhere. So, to match her, I made a white marble throne rise behind me similar to the other one in a cathedral studded with rubies, emeralds, and sapphires. "Social visit then, I see. So Ran, how are things with Yukari?" I asked with all the gentleness of a therapist about to open up the client's past about being molested as a kid. But sadly, she didn't explode about the flaky yokai sage and just smiled. "Oh, things are just fine." I could see that eyebrow twitching as she said that, though. "We just felt Gensokyo itself shaking and wanted to check in." Saying that, she gently played with her hair as she continued. "I also wanted to establish that Yukari isn't trying to hurt you or otherwise bind you. We just want Gensokyo to prosper, as I imagine you do as well." I nodded in assent to her words, but my words didn't really match her outlook on Gensokyo. "Yes, well, when I have all of Gensokyo within my mountain's range of influence, Yukari won't have to worry about the barrier falling apart or anything while she sleeps away the decades." Ran lost a bit of her smile and looked more serious as she leaned forward with her hands still clasped together, pushing her large chest together with the motion, though that obviously wasn't her aim with her words. "Jake, I was being serious about us not trying to seal you away or anything. You don't have to try to take over the world or anything just to feel safe." I have zero clue what she means, but if I have picked up anything from dating manipulative women in my past life, which is to simply blame others and pretend to know more than I actually do. "You say that now, but what of the other mountain gods? Where are they now, huh?" I said sarcastically, and I saw Ran pale as she seemed to come to her own conclusion about something that I said. "Wait, so some kooky shit happened to another mountain god? And if anything, it has to do with being sealed away, if her prior words are anything of note?" I thought, frantically running through any info I had mentally on Toho about mountain gods before turning up blank. In any case, Ren, I don't plan on entertaining the idea of being sealed away eternally, so I must confess to not being interested in lowering said barrier if it keeps the likes of the yokai sages from enslaving me or something, I said, as I had zero idea what the other sages were like, as they seemed to be sleeping eternally with only minor periods of debauchery before going back to sleep.